Am I surprised the Giants haven't been more aggressive in free agency? Obviously, right now there's a lockout, but before the lockout, there was a huge flurry of activity, and there were some major names that kind of flew off the board. And the listeners want to know, am I surprised the Giants weren't more aggressive given some of the names that came off the board already? So we'll get to that question and so many more on today's Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants Baseball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms, now including YouTube as well, so check us out there if you have not already. And coming up on today's show, we're going to do Mailbag Monday. We had Mailbag Friday, and now we're doing Mailbag Monday. With the lockout, I do intend on having mailbags being a big part of this show. It's always fun to engage in that way, and you guys come up with some really interesting questions that get me thinking. And so the first question we're going to get to today comes from Tony, who asks, are you surprised that the Giants haven't been more aggressive during free agency? Mark Canha, Marcus Stroman, Jon Gray, Corey Kluber all seemed like very good fits, and the Giants didn't even seem to go after them. So the first thing I have to say is we don't know when a team goes after a player or not. The fact that the Giants aren't like a team that's floated out there in each and every rumor speaks kind of more to the front office's desire and discipline to kind of stay out of the media and not leak information. So until a team, we didn't hear anything about Anthony DeSclafani. Just boom, all of a sudden, Giants have signed Anthony DeSclafani. And we heard about Wood and Cobb, but that was a whole weird situation where it basically sounded like a deal was done and then a week and a half went by before anything happened. So I can't say definitively the Giants didn't go after these players. But speaking to the ones you mentioned specifically, Mark Canha does stand out to me. I had mentioned him a lot as someone I thought was a possible fit for the Giants. And I think it remains to be seen because Canha, while a nice kind of role player and complementary player and a guy capable of playing every day, I'm not saying he wouldn't be a starter, but it remains to be seen if the Giants want to make a bigger move in the outfield. And there's Seiya Suzuki, there's Nick Castellanos, there's Chris Bryant, and there are other outfielders out there as well. There's trade possibilities. There's Tommy Pham. There's Michael Conforto. So I've said this 1,000 times, but I'm going to withhold judgment until the offseason is done. And regarding the pitchers you mentioned, Stroman, Gray, and Kluber, I'm not sure any of those guys, with the exception of Stroman. I know a lot of fans were really kind of captivated by Stroman, but I have said on the record on this show that the kind of Marcus Stroman is not one that I would be in a rush to invest in heavily. The ground ball percentage is fantastic, but the contact, the lack of strikeouts is a little bit concerning, and it's not necessarily the profile of a pitcher that I would want to invest in heavily. So I never considered Stroman the best of fits, and given the contract that he got, I just personally, 3 years, $71 million, I don't know, would he potentially have been a really nice pitcher for the Giants? Would he have been an upgrade over their current fifth starter? Because that's what you're doing here, is you're upgrading over the worst player that you have kind of projected in your rotation? Of course he would have been. So again, it remains to be seen though. There's Carlos Rodon, who I think is a very intriguing pitcher, and I would be interested to see if he possibly ends up with the Giants. There's not a lot of great starting pitchers on the free agent market left, but there's a trade market, which we're going to get to a little bit later on. There's a question about the starting pitcher trade market. And there's also the Giants' desire to leave room in their rotation for younger players. It's not always a popular thing because the fans want kind of the big name free agents. But the best teams don't generally build their rosters through free agency. Look at the Dodgers. Like, a big part of the Dodgers' success year to year and sustainability has been incorporating new young players into their team every year. And so you have to create those opportunities for those young players. So the Giants have Tyler Beede out of options, and it's easy to forget that he was looking dominant towards the end of 2019 and in spring training 2020. And the Giants had very high hopes for him going into 2020, but then he got hurt in spring training and needed Tommy John. But kind of like Logan Webb, they view him as a guy who has ace potential. And so they probably want to give him opportunities in 2022. And he's out of minor league options, so they can't just send him down. So they kind of need to clear a spot for him. So I'm not saying that means they should just go into the season with this starting rotation, but I am saying I think that that's something to be mindful of. And then in terms of Jon Gray, I don't know. He got paid, man. Like, his contract was up there. I kind of compared him to Anthony DeSclafani. I was kind of wavering on which of the two I'd rather have when I was considering the free agent class. And DeSclafani got 3 years, $36 million, and Jon Gray got 4 years, $56 million. So I think the better contract there belongs to Anthony DeSclafani. We saw the kind of upside he has in 2021. He had a very good season for the Giants. And I think Jon Gray, that would be like a great outcome if he could have the type of season DeSclafani just had. So, I don't know. Am I surprised? A little bit, yeah. I mean, in terms of maybe some of the bigger names, like in terms of Max Scherzer and Starling Marte, I don't know. He was a little bit older to be giving a 4 or 5 year deal to, and mostly the starting pitchers, Scherzer, Gausman, Robbie Ray. I kind of thought that the Giants would probably end up with one of those guys, and they didn't. But I'm also not panicking. I think that they know what they're doing, and Alex Cobb and Alex Wood have very nice projections and had very nice seasons last year. So off season's not over. It was a little bit different than expected, but I'm just not really concerned about it. So anyway, coming up next, we're going to get to more questions. There's a question about a crowded outfield and if Mike Yastrzemski could possibly be on the trade block. So stay tuned for that. But first, does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friends log in for the good stuff. I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. All right, we are going to get to more questions and answers next. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. They're free and available on all platforms. The next question comes from Ryan, who asks, with the need to add a right-handed power bat, most likely in the outfield, and the emergence of LaMonte Wade Jr., is it possible Yaz could be traded? It's already a crowded outfield as it sits. So I think that anything is on the table potentially, but a Yastrzemski trade is not necessarily something I would expect at this point. And if for no other reason, then you would be selling low. And I just don't think the Giants are in the business of selling low unless they're, I mean, look, he probably still does have pretty good trade value given his upside and the fact that he's under club control for the next 4 seasons. He is a Super 2, so he's arbitration eligible this offseason, and then he has 3 more arbitration years after this upcoming year, but still 4 years of club control. It's essentially a club option each and every year when you have arbitration eligibility. The prices go up every year, but still, there's definitely solid trade value in a Mike Yastrzemski, so it's worth exploring. If teams are coming and knocking on your door asking about Mike Yastrzemski, I think that's something they should absolutely listen to. But on the other hand, I do think he still remains an important part of this outfield. And if we're looking at the current state of the outfield, he projects to start against right-handed pitching. And I understand the question is if they add an outfielder. But think about Chris Bryant mostly started in the outfield for the Giants when he was here, there, especially later on and even in the playoffs. I know he played first base, but that was in the absence of Brandon Belt. But, against a right-handed pitcher, they were throwing out LaMonte Wade Jr. and Mike Yastrzemski, and then also Chris Bryant. And so currently, if you traded Yastrzemski, you would have, and say they sign Chris Bryant to kind of fill that right-handed power outfield bat. I'm not sure he's an outfielder. He may be a first baseman kind of down the road. But say they sign Bryant and trade Yastrzemski, who's going to play that third outfield spot against a right-handed pitcher? I guess you could say that it would be Steven Duggar, who is out of minor league options. You could say that it's Darren Ruff, but otherwise you're looking at Austin Slater and I don't know who else. So it would probably be Steven Duggar because, again, out of minor league options, if you don't have Yaz, so you put, I don't know, Duggar in center and you've got Bryant in left and Wade Jr. in right. Yeah, I think that could work, but are you a better team because of it? I don't know. I mean, it does kind of clear a logjam with Steven Duggar because of the fact that he's out of minor league options. You don't really want him just sitting on the bench all season long. Like, you'd like to have him be able to get some playing time, and trading a Yastrzemski could potentially pave the way there. So it is something to consider. Not really until they make a big acquisition for a guy like Chris Bryant. If they don't do that, then obviously there's not really a reason to trade a Mike Yastrzemski. So I think it's a long shot no matter what. But if they do add that right-handed everyday player, it could clear a path for Steven Duggar, who could, they could platoon with Wade Jr. and Slater, or Duggar and Slater, and then Wade Jr. and Ruff. But the other thing to keep in mind is that the universal DH is likely coming, and maybe you want Darren Ruff to be your DH in that situation. So they do have a lot, kind of a logjam in the outfield, and the issue is nobody is like a clear everyday starter. There's a lot of platooning, so there's a lot of pieces, and it's a matter of fitting them together. So yeah, it's something to consider, and we will certainly kind of keep an eye on that as the offseason unfolds. Hopefully a lockout ends and we can kind of get some movement and figure out what this roster is going to look like next year. Michael Scott asks, is a trade the most practical bet for backfilling Gausman's production with Oakland or Cincinnati? Seems like we need Castellanos to fill the right-handed hole in the lineup and then some. Why not trade for Hunter Renfroe if he was on the market, plus defender and bat? All right, so a lot of questions baked into one there. I'm going to start with the pitching question. Now, I'm just going to reiterate, I know I sound like a broken record, but Tyler Beede out of minor league options, and so like, what do? Do people propose just cutting Tyler Beede or trading Tyler Beede? That is a possibility. But again, are you selling low? Do you believe there's much more in the tank? And why would you trade him if you believe that? And so I do agree with you. I think that when all is said and done, they will get at least one more guy who projects to be like a mainstay in the rotation. But as it is now, Webb, DeSclafani, Wood, and Cobb, all of those guys like deserve to be in a starting rotation. And so I start to wonder, would they possibly consider using a 6-man rotation? That might be something that the Giants would look into doing in a season like this because of the presence of a guy like Tyler Beede. I do understand that Beede pitched a lot in AAA this season, trying to come back from, the Tommy John, and I don't want to say rehabbing, but he was building himself back up, and he had serious command issues, which is typical though with Tommy John, but not necessarily this bad. His walk rate was 18.4% in 16 starts in AAA. That is way high. Per 9 innings, that's 8.32 walks per 9 innings. ERA was 6.66, and the peripherals matched up with that. So there's definitely the possibility that Beede doesn't amount to anything, but they're basically going to have to figure that out this year or else trade him. So the question was not about Beede, but that just makes me wonder, are they going to get an established guy to take over another spot because they already have 4 established guys? I think the answer is ultimately yes. And yeah, there's a lot of players to choose from when you're talking about possible trades with Oakland and Cincinnati. There's Chris Bassett. There's the guy whose name I always forget for whatever reason, Frankie Montas. And there's Sean Manaea. And then Luis Castillo. Would I love to see Luis Castillo with the Giants? There's Sonny Gray. I think that might be a little bit more realistic. And there's Tyler Mahle. And so, yeah, there's a lot to choose from, and those teams may be motivated to deal those guys. So I would definitely look out for the possibility of moves there. It's definitely something to look for when the offseason resumes. And then, the question about, it seems like we need Castellanos. I would never go so far as to say they need a specific player. And Castellanos is such a bad defensive player that I've always kind of doubted the fit with Nick Castellanos, because man, can he hit. But although the Giants have kind of ignored defense sometimes, if they like the player enough, they just kind of figure out the defensive issues and hope that they can improve them. And Scott Harris, who's the Giants GM, was part of a Cubs team that traded for Nick Castellanos a couple years ago, and he made a huge impact with the Cubs. So there's familiarity. So he's definitely a guy to watch when we're talking about right-handed outfielder with power. But it would kind of create more issues when you're talking about the logjam. Potentially not. The thing is, he can't really play center, and so I guess that would kind of force Duggar and Yastrzemski and Wade to play more center, and Castellanos would just kind of take over left field, because I don't think he could play right field at Oracle Park either. So he's kind of a left field DH. But yeah, I mean, he's a name to watch when we're talking about that big right-handed impact player. In terms of Hunter Renfroe, a little bit overrated to me. Career .297 on base percentage. So I wouldn't necessarily call him a plus bat. Career close to league average offensively. Lots of power, kills left-handed pitching. Kind of a Darren Ruff, but with less on base percentage. In terms of, I would expect him only to be platooning for the most part. He is a good defensive player, but yeah, .297 career on base percentage is something that would give me pause. Lots of power, but not a lot of on base. So coming up next, more questions and answers. We're going to talk about, what are we going to talk about? The catcher position. This is a hot topic. Joey Bart, Kurt Casale is someone else potentially in play there. So all of that and more coming up next. But first, this holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar or even better than a candy bar, Built Bar. Filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. And this is so important to me. I refuse to eat a candy bar a protein bar that is actually like a candy bar. You look at the sugar contents and you're up around 20 grams of sugar. It's ridiculous. I might as well just eat a candy bar. But with Built Bar, you get the healthy profile, but super high in protein, low in calories. It really is just the perfect combination. So this holiday season, head on over to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your next order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. BetOnline has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues the march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, here we go. We're going to get to the last round of questions here. Thank you to everyone who submitted these questions over the last couple of weeks. We're kind of digging into the archives here, pulling up some of the questions from a couple of weeks ago, but still relevant today as there has, of course, been a pause on the Major League Baseball offseason with the lockout. So the next question comes from King of Norway, who asks, what are the realistic options at catcher? Can Casali provide enough production, especially defense, to start? Is Bart worth more in a trade versus a second chance as a starter? Would a Chris Bryant provide enough production to cover for low offensive production at catcher? So a lot kind of packed in there. And the question about Curt Casali and Joey Bart, if those are kind of your two guys, which currently that's the depth chart, right? There's not really anybody else who projects to be competing with either of those two for the major league catcher positions. Do I think that's how it's ultimately going to play out, and that come, opening day, those are the only two guys who could sniff possibly being on that opening day roster? I do not, because I've talked about this a bunch. I think that that's too risky, because what happens if it doesn't work out with Bart and you feel like you need to send him down to the minor leagues? You have to have at least another guy who could be on the major league roster in that case. But as it is now with just Casali and Bart, I definitely think that you just have to give Bart the playing time. He's not here to just sit on the bench and be a reserve catcher. The upside is much higher with Joey Bart than it is with Curt Casali. Curt Casali is kind of a quote-unquote safe player in a way, because you're going to get decent production out of the bat. I know some people are going to say no way, but career 92 weighted runs created plus, competent to a degree for the catcher position. A 92 plus is actually pretty average for catchers. And Casali, clearly a good defensive catcher. He made a difference and an impact defensively for the Giants this year. So it's nice to have Curt Casali in the fold, but the upside with Joey Bart is clearly much higher. And if Joey Bart can reach his potential, he could be one of the defensive catchers in the game. And, in terms of what scouts have thought of him, they believe that he has to be a difference-making defensive catcher. We saw him have some issues with commanding a staff, really. I mean, there was the Cueto issues. He was just dropping balls. but I wouldn't. That's not really his thing. It was just a bit overwhelmed when he was a rookie in 2020, making his major league debut out of necessity with Posey opting out. So, the split with Bart, but there's the risk him playing like he played in 2020, right? We don't know if he's going to be able to reach that potential. I think what the scouting report is for Bart, and the minor league numbers back this up, is that there may be too much strikeout, there may be too much chase, particularly, and that is something the Giants very much don't want, is their players being wild, free swingers, and so he needs to be disciplined. But anyway, what was your question again? Realistic options at catcher. I think a trade is still a possibility to bring in someone more established. The free agent market is bleak. At the very least, they just need to bring somebody in who can be sent to the minors, but also has the potential to play at the major league level. It is a position of kind of alarm bells going off for me. It to not go well at all. If you need Casale to be like your guy, then it would take a lot for the lost offensive production, because they already had Chris Bryant, and they had, so if you bring back Bryant, it's a big loss going from Posey to Casale, and that's with bringing back Bryant. So offensively, the catcher position is bad in general in the league, and the Giants may just become the worst team in the game offensively at the catcher position. It's possible that happens. So no, I don't think it's in great shape right now, so it's something I'm going to be watching. But again, there's a lot of risk, but there's also a significant amount of Joey Bart. It's just a matter of, can he reach that, and the Giants, of course, hoping that he can. And I mean, it was not long ago he was considered a top 10 prospect in the game, and he's kind of fallen back top 25 ish, but still, that's a very, and they could trade him. They could trade him for a more established catcher even, but I mean, he has a lot of trade value, but the Giants need him. They can't just be trading him, and because then what do they have? Kurt Casale and nothing else. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. I apologize if I didn't get to all parts of that question. I think I did, but anyway, really hope you enjoyed today's Locked On Giants. Thank you for making it your first listen. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. Locked On Bets is free and available on all platforms as well. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. You can follow me on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.